Welcome to today's video. I hope you enjoy the story. Let's begin. Austin returned from a long business trip to San Francisco. Instead of telling his wife, Annie, that he had arrived in Seattle, Austin decided to keep it a secret and surprise her. During the flight, he kept imagining Annie's radiant face when she saw him standing in front of the house. That afternoon, it was drizzling in Seattle, and Austin drove home with excitement. He knew Annie was usually home at this time of year to work, as she was still developing her online gallery. On the way, Austin stopped by his favorite flower shop and bought a bouquet of white roses that Annie loved. He decided to stop at a small restaurant near his house for dinner, thinking that he would be home later than usual. It was getting dark in Seattle, and the quiet space was only broken by the occasional raindrop. Austin was sitting at a familiar restaurant, a place he and his wife, Annie, sometimes visited on weekends. He had just returned from a long business trip and was excited to be home to see his wife again. While eating, he heard the door open and instinctively looked up. At that moment, Austin's heart stopped. Annie walked into the restaurant with a strange man. They didn't see him because they walked straight to a table in the back corner. Austin sat there, not knowing what to do when he saw the scene before him. Annie and the other man seemed close. They sat across from each other, chatting happily and seemingly not worried or aware of Austin's presence. His mind was spinning with a series of questions. Why was Annie here with another man? Who were they? Why didn't she tell him anything? Austin continued to sit quietly, not touching the plate of rice in front of him, his eyes fixed on Annie. Austin silently watched his wife sitting with the strange man in the corner of the restaurant, his heart filled with chaos and pain. He hesitated for a moment, then decided to pull out his phone, his hands shaking as he dialed Annie's number. The phone rang a few times, and then Annie picked up. "Honey," Austin said, trying to keep his voice calm. "Where are you now? Have you had dinner yet?" On the other end, Annie answered in a calm voice. "I'm home. I've had dinner. I'm getting ready for bed now. And you? When are you coming back?" Annie's answer was like a knife stabbing straight into Austin's heart. He looked back at his wife, who was laughing and talking with the other man, completely unaware that she had been caught. The calmness in her voice only made him feel more heartbroken. He tried to suppress his emotions, replying briefly, "I'll be back soon." After hanging up the call, Austin sat there in silence, his eyes full of sadness looking at Annie. She had just finished telling a lie over the phone, a lie he never thought she would tell. Now, he had to face the bitter truth that he had just witnessed. Austin sat silently in the corner of the restaurant, watching every move of Annie and the strange man. When they finished their meal, the two stood up, smiled, and left the restaurant. Austin quietly followed, keeping a distance far enough to not be detected. Austin's heart was heavy when he realized that the path they were taking was leading to his house. Each heavy step felt like a knife stabbing his heart, because they were going to the place where he and Annie had shared so many happy memories. He wondered, did Annie know that he had witnessed everything? Or was she too absorbed in the life she was hiding? When they got closer to the house, Austin stopped, standing from afar watching them enter. The light from the window reflected the silhouettes of the two people in the house he once called home. At that moment, Austin felt like everything around him collapsed, and he didn't know what to do next. But a soft laugh suddenly sounded from inside, like a final blow that broke his patience. Unable to bear it any longer, Austin decided not to stand outside any longer. He gently walked to the door, unlocked it silently, and sneaked inside, trying to keep his composure so as not to make any noise. He moved cautiously, listening to the laughter coming from the living room. As he approached, Austin hid behind the corner, his eyes fixed on the scene before him. Annie and the other man were sitting on the sofa, so close that there seemed to be no distance between them. Every second and minute of witnessing his wife next to another man made the pain and anger in his heart flare up intensely. He had imagined countless times the scene of the two happily reuniting. But now, everything was just bitterness. His eyes could not leave the scene before him. The man gently pushed Annie down onto the sofa, and in the light of the room, he saw the man place his hand on Annie's thigh, then slowly move upwards. Annie did not resist. Instead, she closed her eyes, her face full of satisfaction, without a trace of worry or confusion. The man kissed Annie, then continued his actions, starting to unbutton her shirt one by one. The dress was slowly pulled down, revealing Annie's smooth white skin under the dim light in the room. Listening to this, please support me by like and subscribe. The man continued to pull down her skirt, and in just a moment, Annie's body was completely naked on the sofa, without any covering. Austin stood there frozen, unable to take his eyes off the scene before him. The man leaned down and kissed Annie's body, from the bottom up, then from the top down, each kiss lingering on her bare skin. Annie's soft moans rang out, as if she was enjoying every moment. Annie's gasps echoed in the quiet room, creating an unbearable sound for Austin. The scene he had never imagined was happening right before his eyes, causing everything inside him to shatter. Instead of rushing at them in anger, he suppressed his emotions. He understood that if he just acted on instinct, it would not be enough to resolve the pain and betrayal he had just experienced. In that moment, an idea flashed through Austin's mind. He decided to collect evidence, to clear things up, and to leave no doubt about Annie's betrayal. His hands were shaking. He took out his phone, quietly turned on the video recording mode, and started recording everything that was happening. Every image, every sound of that betrayal was recorded clearly and coldly. After recording enough evidence, Anna quietly retreated, left the room without making any noise, remaining surprisingly calm. He knew that, from this moment on, everything would change forever. The next morning, Austin returned home with a calm mood, but inside was full of turmoil. When Annie saw him, she smiled brightly and walked over, her voice filled with joy. "Austin, why didn't you tell me so I could pick you up? I missed you so much." Austin kept a calm expression, trying not to reveal the chaotic emotions in his heart. He replied softly, "I can go back by myself. No need to bother you." Annie seemed to not notice the coldness in his voice. She quickly prepared breakfast for him, took things from the refrigerator, and placed them on the table. "I've prepared breakfast, but I have to go to work now. Work is a bit busy today. You eat. I'll be back early tonight." The next morning, Austin returned home in a calm mood but was in turmoil inside. When Annie saw him, she smiled brightly and walked over, her voice filled with joy. "Austin, why didn't you tell me so I could pick you up? I missed you so much." Austin kept a calm expression, trying not to reveal the chaotic emotions in his heart. He replied softly, "I can go home by myself. No need to bother you." Annie seemed to not notice the coldness in his voice. She quickly prepared breakfast for him, took things from the refrigerator, and placed them on the table. "I prepared breakfast, but I have to go to work now. Work is a bit busy today. Go ahead and eat. I'll be back early tonight." As Annie hurriedly left, she accidentally left her phone on the kitchen table. Austin noticed this, and an idea immediately popped into his head. He grabbed her phone, unlocked it, and searched for the recent conversation between Annie and the strange man he had witnessed the night before. His heart pounded as he read through the messages between them, but Austin kept his composure. He composed a message impersonating Annie and sent it to the man. "Let's meet at the same place tonight." Soon, he received a reply. "Okay, I'll wait for you." Austin looked at the text message with cold eyes. The man had no idea that tonight would be the last night he would see Annie, a night when the truth would be revealed and everything would be over. That night, when Annie returned home, She still had no idea what had happened. Austin kept his face calm, gently saying, "It's been a while since we've had dinner together. Let's go out to eat tonight." Annie brightened up, her eyes shining with joy. "Really? I'm so happy. So where are we going to eat?" Austin looked straight into her eyes, smiling faintly. "We'll eat at the place you usually go ... with this person." As he spoke, Austin quietly took out Annie's phone, showing pictures and videos of the two of them cuddling. Annie stood there, stunned. Her face immediately paled when she saw those pictures. The joy on her radiant face from earlier gradually disappeared, replaced by panic. Austin kept his voice calm, not showing any anger. "I know everything, Annie. Tonight, you have to take me to see him." When it was dark, Austin and Annie arrived at the appointed place. When the other man appeared, he immediately realized that something was wrong. Entering the room, he saw Annie with her hands tied behind her back and sitting on a chair, her face pale and trembling. The man hurried forward, anxiously asking, "What happened? Why are you like this, Annie?" Annie stuttered, unable to form clear words, her eyes filled with fear. Before she could answer, two men appeared from the corner of the room, causing the other man to panic. He stepped back, his eyes fixed on Annie and Austin, clearly not understanding what was going on. Austin stepped forward, keeping his voice cold. "Don't you recognize who did this? This is the truth you have to face." Austin walked slowly towards the man, his eyes cold and determined. The two men who had just appeared quickly held the man down. Although he tried to struggle, he could not escape. The strange man looked around, his eyes panicked, not understanding what was happening. Cold sweat broke out on his forehead when he realized that the situation had gotten out of control. Austin did not say anything more. He took out a small injection bottle from his pocket and the needle was ready. The man saw this. His eyes became more panicked than ever. "What are you going to do? You're crazy," he shouted, trying to struggle but was held down. Before the man could react, Austin quickly approached and injected straight into his neck. The man only had time to tremble in extreme fear. A few seconds later, his body began to tremble violently, then gradually weakened. His eyes widened in despair before he lost consciousness completely, falling to the floor without resistance. Annie sat on the chair, tears streaming down her cheeks, staring in horror at the horrifying scene before her. "Austin, what are you doing? Don't do this," she stuttered, but was too scared to act. Austin, still keeping a cold face, stood up straight and looked at the unconscious man on the floor. "It's over," he said softly, but each word was powerful. "Tonight, there will be no more betrayal." Austin stared at Annie. "You go as soon as possible. Don't ever come back here again, or you'll suffer the same consequences as him. I've been too kind. If you're still here when the police arrive, things won't end here." In a panic, Annie hurriedly left the house, her footsteps quickly disappearing into the darkness outside. Everything ended in a heavy silence. Annie's figure disappeared into the night, as if she had never existed in his life.